In the darkest corners of the web, social media has been weaponized to manipulate, control, and destroy lives, especially those of the young and vulnerable. Throughout the years, several online cult-like movements have emerged, preying on children and teenagers by using their fears and insecurities against them to get them to commit horrific acts against themselves and others. First, there's the Blue Whale Challenge, a sinister internet game that lured teenagers into a 50-day nightmare of psychological manipulation, pushing them step by step toward self-destruction. Then, there's the Baby Garden Cult, a twisted online community that encouraged mothers to believe their children were better off dead, leading to unimaginable tragedies. Finally, there's Nth Room, a cyber slavery ring in South Korea, where teenage girls were blackmailed into unspeakable acts, all while thousands of anonymous users paid to watch their suffering. Let's keep watching to see how these cases unfold. The Blue Whale game is an incredibly dark and sinister internet phenomenon that emerged in 2016. While it was referred to as a game, there was nothing playful or fun about it. In reality, it was a twisted and dangerous online cult that preyed upon vulnerable children and teens, many of whom were already struggling with mental health issues.
The Blue Whale Challenge popped up online earlier this year. Now, according to some self-described players, the game connects you with someone online who assigns you increasingly disturbing tasks.
The game started off simply enough, with many of its young participants having no clue what it was going to encourage them to do as it progressed. It was said to take 50 days to complete and would begin with anonymous masters assigning tasks to participants. At first, the tasks seemed pretty simple. They would encourage things like watching horror movies or waking up at strange hours. But before long, they would become much more disturbing. The tasks would include dangerous stunts and would even encourage the participants to harm themselves. If they were able to make it all the way to the end, they would be confronted with the most horrific and disturbing challenge of all. If they wanted to end the game, they would have to take their own life. It took a long time for parents, law enforcement, and school officials to find out about this twisted game that was being used to prey on so many young people. This is because it was often shared online in secret through the Russian social network, VK, Instagram, and WhatsApp. When the news about the Blue Whale Challenge finally broke, it spread utter terror throughout communities. The fight to spread awareness, warn parents, and protect children had begun.
It's a deranged concept from the dark corners of the internet, preying on those most vulnerable. A search on Instagram even prompts a warning. When Vacaville school administrators learned middle school students were talking about the Blue Whale Challenge, the district sent parents a warning.
Although we had no information that any students were participating in the app, we just thought we'd err on the side of caution and let parents know that it was out there.
The question that many people had was why anyone would do this, and how it could have been kept a secret from most adults for so long. How could so many young people have been persuaded by a game to hurt or even kill themselves? Before long, reports came out that explained that the game often used things like psychological manipulation and threats to get children to continue with the challenges.
They tell them, if you say anything, we're gonna come home to your home and we're gonna kill your family.
It would also prey upon those who were already having problems with depression, anxiety, or thoughts of harming themselves. As if that wasn't already deranged and twisted enough, investigators also found out that sometimes children who played the game would be blackmailed into continuing. They would be told that if they didn't keep playing, their personal information would be exposed, or their loved ones would be hurt or killed. Because many of these people were vulnerable and extremely young, they believed that they literally had no choice but to keep doing what they were ordered to do by the game. It just kept dragging them deeper and deeper into this dark cycle of mind control, fear, and submission. One mother, appearing on the show The Doctors, explained how she believes her daughter was targeted by those involved with the Blue Whale game because she made her mental illness known on social media. Her daughter was still in middle school and already in a vulnerable state when this game encouraged her to try to take her own life.
My daughter's on Instagram, so she suffers from depression and anxiety. So a lot of the times she will hashtag depression, or she'll follow other followers. She'll make comments about, yeah, I suffer from depression, do you need to talk? And I think that people scope these out and realize and target kids that make it very noticeable.
Luckily, this mom was able to find out about her daughter's involvement with this game before it became too late to save her.
She's on medicine. She has her good days and bad days. I put her in the mental hospital for 7 days, and while she was in there, I decorated her whole wall and put lights. And I had a lot of people reach out from, I think, the Netherlands, Belgium. I had people send letters, messages, and I would print those out and I'd stick them on the wall. So when she wakes up in the morning and she's having a bad day, or when in general she's having a bad day, she can look and realize how many people appreciate her and love her.
But tragically, not every parent was able to protect their children from the evilness of this online threat. There were disturbing reports of teenagers taking their own lives because of this challenge in multiple different countries.
The only explanation, says the family, is a game called the Blue Whale Challenge.
We had no signs at all. Isaiah was Isaiah.
It seems almost unreal. San Antonio police say this is the first they've heard of it. Predators mysteriously contacting potential victims through apps and chat rooms.
Schools sent out panicked warnings to parents, urging them to keep an eye on what their children were doing on the internet and to watch out for signs that they are struggling with mental problems or emotional distress. Law enforcement says that this cult-style game may have been able to lure in so many young people because it made them feel as if they were included in a special group.
Tracy police sent out a warning as well, saying the game depicts itself as a scavenger hunt, requires participants to post photos of their self-harm, and gradually builds from watching scary movies to suicide.
It's a time when a lot of kids can feel that they're questioning about things, feel disconnected, not sure about where they stand socially.
It was difficult to get justice for the incredible terror and devastation that this game caused, because so many of those who were behind it were completely anonymous and operating from all over the world. However, law enforcement was able to locate the creator of the game, a 21-year-old Russian psychology student named Philip Budeikin. He seemed to have created the game as some sort of strange psychological experiment, not seeming to care that there were real people all over the world whose lives were being ruined. There were 16 cases of teenagers who harmed themselves because of the game he created. Because of this, he was arrested and in 2017 was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of sick people out there who enjoy the concept of encouraging young people to hurt themselves, and several copycats have attempted to create similar challenges throughout the years. While stricter internet laws are definitely necessary to try to keep games like this from hurting any more innocent children, the cops say better mental health resources for children is just as important. For years, passionate fans of K-pop music have been absolutely crazy about doing whatever they can to make their favorite artists as successful as possible. Because album sales are used to determine where top artists rank, fans eventually figured out that there was a loophole that they could use to make their purchases count for even more than usual, to really boost their favorite artists' rankings. This involved buying albums from specific retailers like Sonara Records. But what many people didn't know was that there was a dark and incredibly chilling secret from behind the scenes of Sonara Records. That secret was that the founder of Sonara Records, a woman named Kim, was not just a businesswoman. She was also the leader of a dangerous religious cult known as Baby Garden. While the group claimed to be focused on spiritual enlightenment, it was actually tied to brutal abuse, forced service, and even murder.
교주 김기수는 자신을 신격화시킨 뒤
지상 천국을 만들겠다.
박순자가 신이었나요?
뭐 나 안 따르면은 뭐 니들 다 죽는다.
Sonara Records became the go-to retailer for K-pop fans, offering albums at suspiciously low prices. Sometimes, they would be sold even 20% less than other retailers. This pricing obviously raised questions, but customers weren't about to complain about having to pay less for their favorite albums. So time went on, and Kim kept growing in wealth and power, with most having no idea that their album purchases were allowing her to continue her very bizarre and very dangerous cult. Baby Garden was a highly secretive group that preached devotion to Kim, known as Baby, among her followers. Within the cult, traditional family roles were erased. Parents and children no longer addressed each other using words like mom or dad, or son or daughter. Instead, they used only their government names. Kim was the only authority they were allowed to have. Those in the cult cut all ties with their past lives and gave up their belongings. They left their family, friends, and even identities behind to serve Baby. They were brainwashed into believing that their devotion to her would be enough to earn them eternal paradise. The full extent of what was going on is even more disgusting and horrific than that. Kim's followers lived under insanely brutal conditions. Members were forced to work constantly, often dressed in only rags, and little children were reportedly forced into labor. Anyone who failed to meet expectations would be subjected to severe beatings with chains, metal rods, and other objects. Despite urging her followers to be as spiritually pure as possible, Kim would purposefully make many of her male followers compete for her affection. This led to lines of men outside her bedroom at night, just hoping to get a chance with her. Even though she was married, Kim would have relationships with many different men at once. If you were one of your followers, you wouldn't dare complain about any of these things, knowing you would face an unimaginably horrific punishment if you did. The most disturbing case within Baby Garden was the tragic fate of a 5-year-old boy named Nan. His parents, who were obsessively loyal to Kim, allowed the cult to rename him Naki, which means ghost. Kim claimed this new name would purge him of evil spirits, but what followed was a complete and utter nightmare. Naki was starved, beaten, and forced to consume disgusting and unclean things as punishment. He was taken to pig pens, where he would be tortured in unspeakable ways. His suffering lasted until he finally collapsed from exhaustion and eventually died from the relentless torture. Shockingly, his parents thanked Kim after his death. They still believed this was all just a part of some big divine plan. Other children and adults reportedly suffered similar fates, with some of them disappearing without explanation. It wasn't until one young man managed to escape the cult and report the abuse that law enforcement finally got involved. A young South Korean prosecutor took on the case, but he would soon realize that getting people to see the truth was about to be a huge challenge. People did not want to turn against Kim. Kim had super powerful allies, including lawyers, politicians, and even judges. Prosecutors investigating Baby Garden also found stacks of cash totaling nearly $500,000. This proved that Kim had more than enough money to completely disappear if she wanted to. Sure enough, as the investigation continued, that's exactly what she did. While she was gone, the truth of what had been happening within the cult was slowly exposed. Even still, with so many people determined to be loyal to Kim, she never ended up facing any punishment. Following these revelations, major entertainment agencies like Hybe and 17 cut ties with Sinara Records. But it was clear that the damage had already been done.
교주 김기순 씨는 검찰 조사에서 신도 살해를 비롯한 혐의 내용을 완강히 부인하고 있습니다.
전면 부인했습니다. 전면 부인했고 자기는 지시한 적이 없다고 했습니다.
For years, fans had unknowingly supported a company that had been abusing and murdering people. The Baby Garden cult remains one of South Korea's most disturbing religious organizations, and Kim, now in her 80s, continues to deny that she ever did anything wrong.
김기순 씨는 자신이 아가동산 주민들의 영적인 지도자였던 적이 없으며 지난 87년 숨진 최낙비군은 아가동산에서 살지도 않았다고 말하는 등 혐의 사실을 모두 부인했습니다.
In 2019, one of the most horrendous exploitation cases in history was exposed in South Korea. It was called the Nth Room scandal. It was essentially a horrific cyber slavery ring that targeted and blackmailed young and vulnerable girls. These girls would be tortured and exploited for profit through secret online chat rooms. The true depravity of this case shocked not only the nation, but the entire world as it exposed just how evil anonymous messaging can be and how it can be used to abuse and corrupt children. The Nth Room was basically a network of online chat rooms that were hosted on the free messaging app Telegram. Criminals would use the app to target young girls by offering them appealing social media job offers or modeling gigs that were actually fake. Once the girls would respond, the predators would demand private information from them, sometimes including explicit photos or confidential identity documentation. Once the predators got this information, they would then use it against the victims. They would blackmail them into doing degrading, inappropriate, and sometimes even violent things on camera. The girls would feel like they had no choice but to obey, because they would be told their private information, and the pictures of them would be released to their parents and classmates if they didn't. At that point, the predators would then sell the explicit footage to thousands of other anonymous people on Telegram. Many of the people buying the footage would use cryptocurrency so that their crimes couldn't be traced. This was how this cyber cult was able to keep operating for so long without being detected. Kim Won is a reporter for a Korean newspaper that was among the first to start investigating the case. He first started hearing bits and pieces of what was going on in these chat rooms around October 2019 and was shocked and disgusted.
처음에 저희 신문사로 이제 제보가 왔어요. 그 인천 지역에 있는 고등학생들이 아동 청소년 물이 포함된 이제 성착취 동영상을 유통하는 텔레그램의 방을 운영하고 있다. 그때 처음으로 이제 텔레그램 안에 이제 그런 방들이 있다라는 걸 알게 된 거죠. 그게.
However, it would take time to fully put the pieces together and get to the bottom of what was truly taking place within this case. It would eventually be revealed that a 24-year-old man named Cho Jubin was the mastermind behind this whole operation. He ran the network very carefully, recruiting accomplices to help him manage his victims, collect payments, and keep the chat rooms running. Law enforcement later found that more than 260,000 users had participated in these exploitative chat rooms. Most of them were not the kind of people that you would expect to be predators. They were everyday men, students, fathers, and even government officials. All of them had taken part in this horrible abuse. The case finally unraveled when journalists and digital activists exposed the chat rooms and put pressure on law enforcement to take action. The public was absolutely disgusted and horrified. Protests erupted, and harsh punishments were demanded for all who had taken place in this scheme. Of course, not everyone who was involved faced justice. However, Cho Ju-bin, as the mastermind, was arrested and charged. In 2020, he was sentenced to 40 years behind bars for his unspeakable crimes. While standing handcuffed and shackled before an angry crowd after his sentencing, he thanked law enforcement.
멈출 수 없었던 악마의 삶을 멈춰주셔서 정말 감사합니다.
But many were not satisfied with his punishment. They believed it wasn't severe enough considering how much damage had been done.
10년형이라는 그 결과 자체가 뭐 기대보다 높다 낮다라는 이야기보다는 그동안 실제로 이 디지털 성범죄와 관련된 처벌 형량들이 얼마나 미흡했었는가라는 걸 다시금 상기하게 되는 것 같고요. 불법 촬영 등을 비롯한 디지털 성폭력의 어떤 사회적 인식도 부족했었기 때문에 이런 피해 촬영물들을 소비해서는 안 된다는 것들도 이제서야 사람들에게 보편적 인식으로 자리 잡게 되고 있는 그런 과정이라는 생각이 듭니다.
Nevertheless, the scandal has prompted more serious crackdowns against crimes like this one in hopes of protecting the nation's most vulnerable people.
그래서 한국이 더욱더 선도적인 역할을 하면서 다른 동아시아 국가들에게도 우리의 경험을 나누고 우리의 법 체계를 그 레퍼런스 삼아서 법률을 구성할 수 있도록 돕고 하는 작업들도 앞으로의 과제가 아닐까라는 생각을 하고 있습니다.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Until next time, sleep tight.